It's Wednesday, that means it's time for another episode of WakeEd Wednesdays. Hi, I'm Tim LaValle from WakeEd Partnership. In this episode, we're going to be discussing the superintendent's proposed budget for the 2018-19 school year. The superintendent revealed his budget to the school board at last night's meeting with a requested increase in local funding of $58.9 million. That's the highest increase ever requested, but it's also driven by a number of things that are outside of the school system's control. So what the superintendent suggested was that $48 million, roughly, is driven by items that are not in the school system's control, and only about $11.1 million are driven by new or expanding programs. That's a change in past years. Oftentimes, the spending that the school system doesn't have a choice in is much smaller. Some things have changed in the past year that make it more difficult for the school system to continue operating at the level it has been with state funds, and is now hoping that the school system will be funded more with local funds. In particular, the $47.8 million in costs that are outside of the school system's control are growth and inflation. Growth is adding new students, opening new schools. Inflation is just the increased cost of doing business, like utilities increases. There's a loss of spending flexibility from the state level, so the state says that the school system can't use money in certain ways that it was before, and so they changed the law on that. There's also a major impact from K-3 class size reduction spending, which just this year alone will cost over $4.5 million. And then there's also the end of some federal funding that was supposed to run out a few years ago, but the school system actually managed to stretch that money a great deal longer. So what's next ahead for the school system is the school board will have a public hearing next Tuesday night, April the 17th, where the public can offer its comments on the spending plan for the school system. Once the school board approves its budget, it goes to the county commissioners, who then have to review it and compare it with the ability that the county has to meet those funding needs. In previous years, that's been a bone of contention between the two boards, in that the school system decides what's best for its funding needs, and the county commissioners looks at what its spending capacity is and what tax rates are necessary to support that. The county commissioners want to be very cautious and judicious in increasing taxes for operations and continuing expenses. But at the same time, the school board says that it is only responding to changes in funding from other areas like the state budget and also the federal government. So what we have seen in the past is that there has been tension between the two boards. In this past year, the two board chairs, Monica Johnson-Hostler of the school board and Jessica Holmes of the county commission, have worked together to try and repair the relationship between the two boards, to share information, and to collaborate around what is driving budget increases.
These are conversations we've been having for the last several months. I mean, again, it's still a little much and overwhelming to see all the numbers come together, but we have been talking about it since the end of January of where we were with our special education, judiciously having spent ARA funding for several years now as a gap. Growth and legislative mandate still takes a significant portion of what we're requesting, and so again, you heard the board have a ton of work to do by Friday to begin to delve into the budget and begin to ask questions to staff so that we can then prepare to have the conversation, both public comment and then what we submit to the county. The thoughts are going to be similar as they were last year, and again, I will say the same thing that I said last year. It's our job and due diligence to put forth what the district needs. You heard this is mostly doing business as. This isn't nowhere near the expansion that many board members had hoped for. It does still include our counselors and some funding for AIG, but the most of that funding is doing business as, and so hopefully the commissioners will continue to have the conversation with us around the amount of money and the impact that we are now all carrying the burden from that we didn't get from state government and those changes.
I've consulted in my private sector experience with thousands of corporations. I've never seen as complex a budget as K-12 education and government. It's not true just in North Carolina. Some of it's the different funding sources, some of it's the restrictions on various types of funds. Got over 100,000 different accounts in our chart of accounts. We've already begun discussions on adjustments that we would make in or to reconcile to whatever the final county appropriation is. That's one variable. But we'll be working through adjustment scenarios in the coming weeks so that once we do know the final county appropriation, we'll have some options to bring back to our board.
Well, that's been another episode of WakeEd Wednesdays. Thank you for watching. If you have a comment on the school system budget, please leave it below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel and share our videos on your favorite social networks as well. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next Wednesday.